Hi guys. All right, this is your chicken schnitzel recipe. Goes well with the spätzle. I'm gonna record that separately so you can kind of see them in their just entirety by themselves of how these two recipes are. Chicken schnitzel, really great recipe, favorite of mine. Grew up having schnitzel a lot as a kid. Talked a little bit about schnitzel in class, that it's just really defining a thin piece of meat that's breaded, so thinly cut. Pork, chicken, veal, all great examples that can be a schnitzel. And then I'll show you the standard breading procedure that goes with that. For this one, I just happen to have 3 chicken breasts, so I'm going to do this recipe for my 3 chicken breasts that I have here. So all your amounts you can figure for the 3 thin pieces of chicken. Easily doubled, easily bumped up. If you wanted to add 2 more because you're feeding 5, just bump it up a little bit more. You'll see how my breading goes. But super easy. A little bit of mise en place with my knife work here. Got lots of things set up ready to go, but with my knife work I want to get some garlic chopped or minced, really minced into a paste, something really fine. I don't want big chunks of garlic. So the recipe calls for 1 garlic clove per chicken breast I'm doing. So I really only need 3, but some of these are kind of small, so I'm bumping it up to 4. So 1 big garlic clove per chicken you have. So it's a little confusing, I'm sorry. Usually just 3, but like I said, one of them is kind of tiny, so I kind of bumped it up to 4. So I'm gonna do 4 of my garlic cloves minced. Like I said, something a little smaller. You don't want a chunky chop. You do want fine garlic here. We're going to kind of saute it in our pan with the chicken, and we don't want it really big to kind of be burnt, but then also we just don't want these big chunks of garlic as we're eating our delicious schnitzel. Alright, takes the bottom off here. This one's already split. See where that germ is? My garlic's getting a little bit older. Some of those germ pieces are a little bigger here as your garlic just gets older. Okay. So these kind of all go to the edge. Give them all a good whack. All right, now it's a little bit smaller. I think I'm gonna try and get a little bit of a finer paste. Try to smush my garlic here on the cutting board. If you have a garlic press, I'll do the same thing. lovely garlic paste. Like I said, nothing too big and chunky. And I'm done with my board and done with my knife, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this washed up and be right back. Okay, so I got my garlic. I have 3 thin chicken breasts here. So again, however many servings you're doing, one of these chicken breasts makes a really great serving. So a couple things here with my first steps. Talks about preheating my oven, so let's preheat my oven here quickly. I'll get into that later, why we have preheated it. It also talks about working with raw chicken. We want to be really careful with our cross-contamination, so just being really, really aware. When am I touching chicken? Am I going to the sink right after? What else am I touching? If I'm picking up the phone, picking up a spoon, touching the oven door, touching the refrigerator door after touching chicken, we're just cross-contaminating, right? So just really being aware of what we're touching with our chicken. Is our utensils, all those types of things. So keep that in mind. Just a little reminder about our cross-contamination, washing our hands, washing our equipment really well. So my first blank here, it says, make sure chicken pieces are evenly thin. So evenly thin is what it says. Well, what does that mean? So normally when you see a chicken breast, if you look at its profile, it's usually really plump on one end and kind of goes down and tapers down and is really thin on the other end. So I don't want to use a chicken breast in its whole, like right out of the package. What can I do? I can pound it out. So if I have maybe like a meat mallet or even like the back of a saute pan, I can pound it out. Depending on how big that chicken breast started out as, that could not be the best way to pound out and get a thin chicken breast. So if it does start out really, really plump and then get super thin, like really big, pounding it out I wouldn't suggest. But what I would suggest is cutting it. So you can lay your chicken breast on the counter and then gently cut it 2 or even 3 times depending on how big they are. Some of them get really big. You can get quite a few pieces out of them. So this chicken breast has been cut. So like I said, it was on the cutting board, and then you put your knife here. If your chicken breast is sliding around a lot, make sure that your cutting board is dry. So if it's gotten wet, just wipe it down with a paper towel and get rid of it. Even a dry chicken breast, maybe pat your chicken breast dry to help things from slipping around. Doesn't have to be like really dry, but just patting it dry is going to help from things slipping. So if you're realizing it's kind of slipping on you, dry will help. I was pleasantly surprised that when I bought these at Winco had a package of chicken breasts that were already sliced thin for me. So that was really, really great. I had never seen that before. I don't know if it was a fluke or something they're doing now, but I did get a package that were already cut for me. The butchers had already done it, and it was a pretty decent package. But they are cut thin for me. And I want thin pieces because I want nice, thin, even cooking. Because we're just going to bread this and then cook it in my fry pan. And we want to get a nice golden brown color on the outside. And I don't want to burn the outside, but I want the inside of my chicken to be done. So an even product is going to help. So even if you're doing veal or pork, making sure that your product is really even so you get even cooking and it's going to be beautiful golden brown on the outside. The purpose for the oven is a couple things. If your outside of your chicken looks really great, because we're going to be able to caramelize the breading on the outside of my chicken, and I want the outside of the chicken to be really pretty and really caramelized and not burnt. Well, if I come to a point where I realize, oh, it's really great and caramelized and it's maybe on the edge of burning, get it out of the pan. And if you think maybe, oh no, but the inside isn't done yet, it's still raw chicken on the inside, we can put our seared chicken in a pan like this, put it in the oven, and it'll finish baking. So one reason for the oven is to finish baking it. The other reason for the oven is to keep it warm. So like I said, I was going to do this with my Schnitzel. I'm going to record that separately. But when I make this at home, I make it with the Schnitzel, and I want to have my chicken, it's kind of, I can't get everything done at once. So what I do is I do my chicken first, let it hang out in the oven so it stays warm, and then I do my Schnitzel on the stovetop and finish that. So it's kind of helping as a warming situation, but it's also going to help finish chicken breast if you're ever worried that it's not quite done, but yet you can't leave it on the stovetop anymore because it's just going to burn. Okay, I got my chickeny fingers all cleaned up here. So what do we need to do to get our chicken breaded? What's with the rest of my ingredients here? So we have chickens that are evenly thin. We want to season the chicken with salt and pepper, and then we're going to bread using the standard breading procedure flour, egg wash, breadcrumbs. That's the order we want to go in. So let's season our chicken. So my nice even thin chicken breast, I'm just going to season, well, I might just season one side, and then when I put it into my flour, I'll put it seasoned side down, and then season the other side, just to prevent myself from touching chicken 100 times. Okay, so breading procedure. So how do I do that? So I have these separate pans here. I did try to find something with some higher sides to it. So if you have an extra baking dish or like a pie plate or a cake pan or something with some little higher sides, that's better. I've definitely done it on a plate, especially if I have a few, just 3 chicken breasts. I could probably do it on a plate. But it's a little easier if you have a little bit of room to wiggle here. So to get my breading station set up, I'm going to do 3/4 of a cup of flour. 3/4 cup flour. And this is just for my breading. So if you're doing more chicken or less chicken, I might be able to do a little more or less. See how accurate my measuring is here. I just want to get some breadcrumbs in there. And then I have 3/4 cup the breadcrumbs as well. And I just get, it's just the Italian blend breadcrumbs. And I really like these. You can definitely use just panko or plain breadcrumbs if you want to, but the Italian ones I really like because they already have a little bit of seasoning to them and a little bit of flavor. They have a little bit of garlic in them. They smell really nice just by themselves, so they're just going to add to the flavor that I have going on with my chicken. And then an egg wash. So I'm just going to do 1 egg for an egg wash. What does that look like? So that's 1 egg, and then I'm going to put maybe 2 tablespoons of water in here. And it's just water and egg. And I'm just going to use my fork and just mix that up, and now I have an egg wash. So an egg wash is just egg and water. Sometimes milk. Some recipes might be specific and ask for milk, but water is just fine for our purposes. All right. All these pans. So I want to make sure that before I start breading, before I start touching the chicken, that I know where I'm going with everything. So I have my breading, I've got my raw chicken that's going to be up here I can grab. I'm going to go flour, egg wash, breadcrumb, and then I'm going to go on a plate because I'm not ready. My pan isn't hot yet. I don't want to focus on that yet. And then this is my pan that's going to go in the oven. So breading, tricks to doing a great breading procedure here. It's like I said, have everything ready and kind of close. And then you want to think about having a wet hand and a dry hand because I have wet chicken, I have dry flour, I have wet egg, I have dry breadcrumbs. So I can use one hand and do it, but once I'm doing several, I'm just starting to bread my fingers and it just becomes a really big mess. So one hand that touches wet things only and one hand that touches dry things only is helpful. Get the seasoning on my other side of my chicken here. Done with that. All right. Like I said, you can certainly use a fork or a utensil. So now my dry hand touch the chicken with the flour. So one kind of trick or secret or thing I don't think people tell you a lot is that when you bread stuff and you have the standard breading procedure here, flour, egg wash, breadcrumb, and in this exact order, when you get to the flour, you want to shake off as much flour as you can. I actually have my garbage can. Because I have such a big garbage can, I usually put my chicken over my garbage can to shake off as much flour because it really is just a dusting of flour. It's not coated like a thick coating, it's dusted, it's covered, but I want to shake off as much flour. That is going to help my breadcrumb or my breadcrumb mixture, my breading that I've done, stick. Because if my flour is really, really thick, my breading, when I get to the end and it gets cooking, usually just slips right off. And it's not super fun. So just dousing it in the egg wash, flipping it once just to make sure it's coated in the egg. Now my chicken pan's done. I'm going to put that in the sink. Use my dry hand again for the breadcrumbs. So when I get to the breadcrumbs, I like to make sure I've got a nice coating on it and it's sitting on like a bed of breadcrumbs. And then I like to give it a gentle press. I'm not like Hulk smash here. I just want to give a gentle press. And then gently shake that off. And then now I have a nice breaded chicken breast. My dry hand, my flour. You can see sometimes shaking your containers helps. And I don't like to have a whole ton of stuff in my pan because whatever I don't use is just garbage. You know, I'm not going to put this flour back into the container what's not used, and I'm not going to find a use for my breadcrumbs that weren't used because now they have chicken goo on them. So I don't want to use them for anything. So I like to be a little sparing with my ingredients. Like I said, it just whatever's not used just hits the trash. So I don't want to just have an abundance of things hitting the trash. But if you need more, sprinkle some more on. It's becoming challenging to get all the breading on there. And sprinkle some more breadcrumbs. And then these won't be in here for very long, like on this plate, so they are going to overlap a little bit. And that's okay, but if you are doing lots and lots and lots of chicken, I would suggest having a bigger vessel than maybe a plate, like maybe a sheet pan. And then also having maybe like a layer of parchment or plastic wrap if you're going to go a lot higher. So if you were going to go a lot higher, I would do plastic wrap or parchment or something to separate the layers so that your bottom chicken usually kind of just gets pressed and it just kind of makes the breading a little funky. But this is just going to be 3 chickens. It's not like I'm putting piles and piles on top. You can also do chicken tenders. Chicken tenders are really good. It's just a little bit more work because you're going to have a bunch of small little chicken pieces versus like a whole entire chicken breast. So you might have like 8 or 9 little chicken tenders versus 3 giant chicken breasts. So your breading is just going to take a little bit longer. So like I said, all that's garbage. Okay. Now I can finish sanitizing everything. So I'm going to sanitize the rest of my workstation before I move on. All right, I am ready to get some heat onto my pan. So my other ingredient here is butter. I'm going to do a tablespoon of butter for all the chicken I have. So I'm going to need 3 tablespoons of butter. But I'm not going to use them all at once. They're kind of divided. When I cook them in the pan, I'm only going to use half a tablespoon per chicken. So I should be able to fit all of my chicken in here at once because I've got my fry pan, it's got high sides, but it has also a lot of surface area. So I should have no problem getting all 3 of these big guys in here at once. So to get in here, 1.5 tablespoons of butter. Because I'm going to do all 3 of my chicken, I'm going to have half a tablespoon per side. Alright, I'm going to start with a medium heat. So my second paragraph says, in a skillet over medium heat, melt the butter. Butter, we're going to be really careful because, as we talked about before, butter can just be really delicate. It can burn pretty quickly. So I want to take my heat nice and slow. I can always turn my heat up if I need it, but I'm going to take it nice and slow. I have a nice big pan here. I did not preheat my pan, so I'm going to let the pan and all the butter come up to kind of temperature together. I don't want to throw my butter in there and have it sizzle and smoke and make a big old mess. Everything will kind of come up to heat together. So in the skillet over medium heat, melt the butter. We're going to use half a tablespoon of butter per side of the chicken breast. Once butter is melted and foamy, so we're going to see it become a little foamy like we did with our Alfredo sauce. And that'll let us know that we can add the garlic to the pan. We're going to place a chicken piece on top of the garlic immediately. So I want to be a little strategic with how I have my butter and my garlic, because my chicken is going to be kind of chunked in spots here. So I'm going to put my garlic in spots where I'm going to have chicken. I don't really want garlic in my pan where chicken won't sit on top of it. I can always add more garlic later, but I want to make sure that wherever there's garlic, chicken will lay on top of it, because what happens is as it cooks, the chicken sticks to the garlic sticks to the breaded chicken and kind of becomes part of the breading there. It's really tasty. I'm just using a fork. Tongs would work. I also don't have a Teflon coated pan, so if you have a Teflon coated pan, I would avoid metal utensils. I would use like a rubber spatula, wooden spoon, something like that. So just be aware if you're using something with Teflon that has the non-stick coating that you're not scratching the pan. All right, my butter's melted. Just gonna wait for it to get a little foamy. I can start seeing it bubble a little bit over in this region. So I'll start putting a little bit of garlic down. And I want to reserve some garlic for the other side of the chicken, because I do want to brown both sides of the chicken, so I'm reserving some butter, and I'm also going to reserve some garlic for both sides of the chicken. So I've used probably half my garlic here. So now it's time to lay the chicken down. And again, just being pretty strategic about how I'm laying it down. So it's going to be on top of garlic. I have my pan that's going to go in the oven. I'm just going to get my butter ready here. So now I just get to wait patiently while this side browns. I do have some butter that's not, like, chicken's not sitting on this, so as this sits for a little while, I may be able to move these around to let that breading kind of absorb some of this butter. But really, this is just about patience. I just want to have this low heat, because what I want to have happen is this caramelization. I have fat in the pan, my butter. I have my breading, the garlic. As it sits there with the heat, it's just going to continue to focus. That's really kind of annoying, the camera not focusing, like it's like pulsing. Anyway, it's going to caramelize. So I want this to caramelize, but like I said, it's just patience. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So at the beginning, try not to touch it, try not to fuss with it. If you're seeing some smoke happen and things sizzling really loudly, then yes, I might want to investigate a little or turn my heat down. But really, I'm just going to let it do its thing. If I were to pick it up now, the garlic will stick to the pan and it doesn't stick to the chicken. But if I am patient and wait a little bit, that garlic will release and come up off the pan and stick to the chicken, and then I can kind of move things around. So again, just taking some time, letting it caramelize. Don't bother it. While I am being patient and letting it do its thing, I'm going to spread the garlic on the other side because, as you might guess, I want to caramelize the other side of the chicken here. So as I wait for this other side, I can kind of pre-set up this side here. But I'm just going to take the remainder of my garlic, and you can see I'm just kind of spreading it around the chicken. Try to get it somewhat evenly on there. But just kind of spreading it around so that when I go to flip, my garlic's already here. I'm not having to kind of spread garlic and flip and do all these things. So in a perfect world, I'll just have butter as well on my chicken, and I can flip. I can hear it sizzling, I can smell garlic, so I'm gonna give it a little wiggle, and then after a wiggle, that one moved really nicely. Still some garlic stuck to the pan. And you'll notice as it starts to caramelize, the chicken glides around really, really easily. You'll notice if you try to move it immediately after you have put it down, the garlic or the chicken doesn't really want to move quickly. But as it caramelizes, that chicken glides around the pan really easily. And you can see I'm kind of staging my butter. It's still cold, so I'm kind of chiseling it off this little half tablespoon. And then just trying to put it all over the chicken, like throughout all of the surface area I have, so that when I go to flip it, I've got butter happening on all parts of the chicken, up top, down the bottom. All right, take another peek here. Oops, I think that guy's just about ready to flip. And what I'm peeking at is I want to see this nice caramelized color. And I also want to see that the garlic isn't sticking to the pan. So I think this guy's ready to flip. So I'm going to try to flip it. I might lose some of this butter, but I can always kind of tuck it back in there. But I do want to make sure that there's butter underneath. That one worked pretty well. I didn't have butter shooting out. But see how beautifully golden brown that is? It's beautiful. Perfect. So just a reminder, this part of cooking in this saute pan, or this fry pan, tuck that garlic back in, is just this, just getting my caramelization done. All I want to do is caramelize right now. I'm not going to worry 100% if the chicken on the inside is done. That's what the oven is for and this pan is for. So if my chicken isn't done, don't worry about it. Don't cook too far and let this burn, and you'll lose this beautiful caramelization that you have. Throw it in the oven, because if you throw it in the oven and it's kind of a single layer, you don't want to be shingling. So if you are doing more than a few pieces of chicken, you might want to consider a second pan or like a sheet pan, but it will stay crispy. So as long as these aren't piled on top of each other in a pan here, they'll stay crispy. So again, caramelizing is all I'm doing. It's just another thought of like searing. I want to sear the outsides and I want to make the outsides beautiful. I'm going to find another cooking method to get the inside done. So it's kind of a two-part thing here, right? I'm worried about the outside. I'm going to worry about the inside being done and up to temperature after it sits in the oven. Or, in a perfect world, my chicken is thin enough, my heat was high enough, and when I pull this off, maybe my chicken is already done. You can always temp it to 165 if you have a thermometer. You can kind of cut open the thicker part and see that it's all white meat, no pink is left. But that could be an option. Maybe your chicken was cut thin enough and your chicken is done already. That could just be an option. I'm going to make another video for my Schnitzel. And like I said, when I do this at home, I'm trying to do Spatzel and chicken, and I can't ever do it at the same time because I only have 2 arms. So I always throw it in the oven. All right, so this guy's done. I've got nice caramelizing here. See what his friends are doing. I'm going to turn my heat down because I can see it's caramelizing. There we go. That one's pretty. And my pan is definitely hot, so my pan's preheated, but I just don't want to. There we go. That's beautiful. I just don't want to burn it. So my pan will hold residual heat for a while, and I put it on a low heat. Just a low, little tiny heat. I'm going to leave that on there just a tad bit longer. Get out this extra garlic bits here, because those are going to be tasty. All right, perfect, beautiful golden brown. All right, so that heat goes off. These can go in the oven. So another thought is if I'm doing more, because this pan was huge, this chicken is huge. So if I were doing more chicken and I needed to do more rounds in this pan, you certainly can, but just be aware, see all the debris and kind of crumbs that are left behind? I could maybe get 1 more round of searing my chicken before I'm going to have to wipe this down, because eventually it's just breading and garlic bits, but eventually this is going to start to burn, right? And then that's going to transfer to your chicken product. You don't want that. So if you are doing several rounds of chicken, you will want to do maybe two rounds tops, and then just use a paper towel or a spatula or something and scrape out the kind of the burnt bits that are happening. It's just the breadcrumbs that are left, garlic that's left. Like I said, you just don't want those to get to a burn point and then they transfer to your chicken. That's not good. The other option of doing this, again, if you have lots, is to use an electric skillet. If you have one of those electric skillets that are really large, rectangular, you can usually get lots and lots of chicken on that as well. It's the same process. Put some butter down, let it get foamy, put your garlic, chicken, butter, garlic, flip. That works really, really well just because you have so much surface area with an electric skillet. All right, so let's run through this recipe one more time. All right, so like I said, I did this for 3 chickens. So I had 3 chicken breasts, or 3 chicken breast pieces. Remember that we're getting them really thin. If you have those chicken breasts that are really, really big, you may be able to get 3 of these pieces out of 1 actual chicken breast, depending on how thick they are. I had 1 egg for my egg wash. I had 3/4 a cup flour, 3/4 cup breadcrumb. I had 3 tablespoons of butter, because remembering that I was doing a tablespoon per chicken, half per side. And then about 3 cloves of garlic, like a clove of garlic per. I added another one because it was kind of, one garlic was kind of small. But you can see with adding that other one, it got me lots of really good garlic to spread around through all my chickens. So generally 1 garlic clove per chicken breast. If they're smaller, add another. If you don't like garlic so much, maybe don't add as much. Maybe you can just have a little bit. That works too. So then my first plank was thin. I wanted to make sure that they were evenly thin. And I was breading using the standard breading procedure. Again, flour, egg wash, breadcrumbs, really important to understand that order of how it goes. And then I had my skillet over medium heat. I melted the butter, waited for it to get foamy. And then this is where I left off, that I placed the chicken piece on top of the garlic immediately, let the breaded chicken brown well before flipping, but be careful not to let the butter burn. So not letting the butter burn. Like I said, turn the heat down. I started with a low heat, right between a medium and a low, I guess, a medium and a low. And it worked fine the whole time. I kind of turned it way down towards the end, just to make sure I wasn't gonna get things extra burny. So turn heat down if needed. Before you flip the chicken, add remaining half tablespoon of butter and the garlic. And then we can flip that. So I kind of pre-staged it, right? And then I flipped it. Let the chicken brown before removing. As the chicken pieces get done, collect in an oven-proof pan and continue to cook until in the oven until cooked throughout. Your last blank is throughout. So like I said, stovetop, all we want to worry about is how pretty the outside is. Beautifully golden brown. Worry about finishing it in the oven if you have bigger chunks of chicken that it's not done. Or these are, like this one's pretty darn thin. I think this one might be done. So a couple different scenarios there. Checking to see if chicken's done throughout. What do we got to do? We can do a thermometer for 165 degrees, poking it into the fattest part of the chicken. Or we can use like a paring knife or maybe like a fork and kind of peek inside that you wanted to see that the meat is all white and no pink is left. So again, that would be on the fattest part of the chicken, because that's going to be done first, right? So if you were to do that, I would check the fatter part of the chicken versus something down below, like that one, where it's kind of peters out and really small. That's going to be done first. So you want to check that fatter part. So thermometer 165 or no pink is remaining, that all your meat is white. So that's chicken schnitzel. I'm going to get the other video for the spätzle done. So hop over and watch the other video, because then you'll be able to see like the final finished product of the two pieces coming together, so you can have a meal of your chicken schnitzel and your spätzle.